Yesterday, I received an email from Amazon telling me that my account had been suspended and I run the risk of it being canceled completely if I don't reply in the next 24 hours. The email instructed me to click on the Amazon link provided in the email and enter my username and password to ensure that my account is up to date. Now, I'm keenly aware that there are scams out there. I get emails all the time about my Wells Fargo account needing to be updated. Newsflash, I don't have any account with Wells Fargo, so I know that one is a scam. But this Amazon email seemed like the real deal. There's the Amazon logo. After all, it looks like the Amazon font. Plus, the email was sent from this very convincing address, FPLK959TRT22XB at Amazon with two N's, AMAZONN .RU. So that seems legit.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Podfulness. Let's get started.
Before we get to today's guest, I just want to remind you that you can subscribe to this show, that you have the power to share this show with friends on your socials or word of mouth. Now, of course, this is America, so you can do what you want to do. But I would love to see this show grow. I like the idea of learning about new podcasts, and so this is a show where you can do that. I'd love for this to be a part of more people's week. PR is something I'm not good at, so I'm depending on you, the listener, to do that for me. So thank you in advance. Today's guest is Julie McDowell. Julie is a mathematician and she's a historian. She's taught math, she's taught history. She is a lover of education. And I really like talking to people who know their stuff because I learn a lot. And this podcast could have gone on a lot longer. I could have asked her more questions about history. It's just such a fascinating subject because it's a part of who we are and who we're going to be in the future. And we use it to inform our decisions, hopefully. We've got politicians that can make the right choices. I know that's a little suspect as of late, but she's going to come on the show and share her insights with us. So without further ado, enough of this introduction. Let's get to it. I'd like you to meet Julie McDowell. Let's get to it. Julie McDowell is our guest on Podfulness. And Julie, I don't really know you, do I?
No. I think we met briefly over a salad bar.
Oh, yes.
At a meeting.
That's right.
For our
Well, that's
company.
where all
That
great
was about it.
friendships begin, I
That's
think.
right. I think so. Like, reaching for the same crouton tongs or something.
And that's right. That's how friendships occur. And you are from Michigan.
Go blue.
From Tecumseh. You just said go
Yeah.
blue?
I did
Gosh,
just
you
say
guys
go
are
blue.
nuts up there.
We are a little nuts. Yeah.
All right, so there in Tecumseh, I have to ask you a very important question about Tecumseh.
Yes.
I did a little research.
Mhm.
Twin Pines Eatery and Ice Cream or The Vault in downtown Tecumseh, which is the better ice cream place?
If you want just good, I would actually go to Frosty Boy if I wanted to have ice cream.
I
So
saw
like
that
a-
as an
like a-
option.
Like a Dairy Queen experience, you would go to Twin Pines or the Frosty Boy. If you want gourmet, pricier gelato and upscale ice cream, if you want that experience and you want to eat it in a historic building, then you would go to the Vault. So, but I would actually go instead. I would go 2 doors down from the Vault to Tecumseh Brewing.
Okay,
So,
that's
we
what
have
you
a
would
great
do?
brewery. Yeah, that's right.
Well, the Vault sounds fancy. So for folks listening that don't know me very well, I'm all about ice cream. That's my vice. And so
Yeah.
anytime I travel to a new town, I always look up the ice cream options first.
Yes. So
Yeah.
if you want really good gourmet ice cream, you could go to the Vault. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right, so Julie, give us the 411 on you. What is your life bio in like 30 seconds? Tell us all about you.
Life bio. So I am coming to you from the town I was raised in, graduated from, raised my kids in. I went to U of M, studied history, but minored in math because my parents said I would never get a history job. And to this day, I'm still working with math. And to this day, they still rub that in. So got my master's in history because that was at the time when districts would pay for your master's. So I was like, I'm going for something I love. So my master's is in history. I was able to teach history for 11 years. If I had, I had a magic wand, I could, have my dream retirement job. I would love to be a battlefield guide at Gettysburg. That
Wow.
is my happy place. I just right now don't have the 2 or 3 years it would take to study to take the test to be a registered battlefield guide. Nor do I live in Gettysburg. That's sort
The
of
commute makes it a problem. Yeah.
a little bit. I'd be willing to make that though. So yep. Married to Mike for 26 years. He is a retired middle school math teacher. And then we have 2 amazing kids. Alex, who is 23. He's in politics. He works for a representative at the Capitol in Lansing. And he's one of the staff. And then our daughter, Abby, is majoring in cybersecurity, but she has taken a detour down the AI rabbit hole lately.
Oh, boy.
And has discovered she is really intrigued by AI. So she and one of her fellow students might be writing a paper on an AI model that they built. So
I mean, the whole world right now is obsessed with AI.
Yeah.
It seems like it's taking giant leaps this year.
Yeah. And I'm kind of like the, don't feed the robot.
That's right.
Scares me a little bit.
Right. So, Julie, if you grew up in the same town where you live, that means people know you. So what were you like as a teenager, and are you that same person?
I was pretty straight-laced as a teenager. So, and then, obviously, as a teacher in the town, I think you're held to a different standard than other people. It was don't be seen walking out of certain bars at night kind of thing. Like you have to. But actually, raising our family here, it was great because we do know so many people. There were times I would get calls from people who would say, "Do you know what your son was doing?" And I would say, "Thank you very much for letting me know." So I felt like I had eyes and ears and hearts looking out for my kids at all times in this small town.
And did you always want to teach? Did you know that even when you were younger?
No, I actually started off in engineering at U of M, and was like, "Man, this is not my jam. This is." So my mom and dad said, "You know what? Take a semester off, take a whole bunch of different courses, see if anything else, resonates." And I had always hated history. I thought history was the most boring thing in the world. It was just dates and dead people. Took a history course and realized it was about people. It was about telling stories. It was about figuring out how you got where you are. And it was like a light bulb went on. So, I mean, I remember the day I realized I want to be a history major and I want to be a history teacher. Like it just clicked. So then I had to have that phone call with my parents. They were like, "That's awesome, but if you want your tuition paid for, you'll also minor in math or science."
Okay.
So, yep.
So talk to me about reenactments. Is that something you ever participated in? Do you like watching them, or is that the part? What do you think of
that's
those?
that's a little cosplay for me. Like it's, and I am struggling with. I read the most amazing book by Ty Sedgley. It's called Robert E. Lee and Me. It was, a man who grew up in Arlington, Virginia, was born to, he was raised to revere Robert E. Lee and all things Lee and the Confederacy. And it was about his coming to terms with that. And looking at, reenactors through the lens of how I now see the Civil War after reading that book and thinking a little more deeply on it. It would be very hard for me to understand why people would want to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're an educational consultant now, right? So
I am,
you
yes.
travel around a ton, right?
I do.
What does that mean to be an educational consultant?
So to be an educational consultant means you get to spend time with people who inspire you, with people who you work very hard to make sure that you do right by them. I know how hard it is to be a teacher. It's even hard. So I left the classroom 4 years ago to go on this new venture. I also know what it's like to sit through professional development that I feel didn't honor my time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no greater asset for a teacher than his or her time. So I carry that. Their time is their most important asset. This needs to be worth it. So
you're in your car a lot. So how are you passing the time in the car?
Oh, funny you should ask. Obviously podcasts. So and I have different podcasts for different, I would say, different energy levels that I need.
Okay.
So if I really need to wake up, I listen to Conan O'Brien. So
Of course.
yes, like that's
Always.
that is always at the top.
Always dependable. Yeah.
Yep. Smartless is another good one. There's another one called True Story with Tig and Cheryl. It's Tig Notaro, the comedian, and Cheryl Hines from Curb Your Enthusiasm,
Yep.
where they review documentaries.
I've listened to that show. They spend about 2% of their time talking about the documentary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just brain candy. You learn absolutely nothing about the documentary other than it existed, but you just giggle the whole time.
Right.
So,
Well, for your heavier moods and your
heavier
thinking moods, that's right.
yeah.
We've got a podcast that we are going to
Exactly.
talk about, but we're going to do so right after this break.
Podfulness.
This episode of Podfulness is brought to you by a brand new sponsor, The Last Clap. The Last Clap sounds like a venereal disease or a new Netflix reality series about a washed-up Vegas lounge singer, but no. The Last Clap belongs to that one person in the audience, typically a male, typically under the age of 20, who has to be the last person to clap during an applause break. And usually this one male is competing with his other male friend to see who can get in that last clap. Let me paint the picture for you. You're attending a high school awards program or a winter band concert. The crowd applauds for something. And then the applause dies down and you hear a solo clap, followed by another solo clap, followed by a quieter solo clap, followed by another quiet solo clap. You turn your head to see two boys bent over, giggling, trying not to draw attention to themselves, battling for that last clap. It's a rite of passage, and truly, it doesn't bother me because I'm pretty sure I did the same thing. Every guy, at one time or another, has tried to be the last clapper. The last clap, found anywhere bored young men are required to sit for an event they don't want to attend. And now, back to the show.
Well, the first thing to know is that Revisionist History, they don't come out with a new episode every week. So every season is usually 8 to 12 episodes, something like that. So when you do get a Revisionist History episode, you want to spend it like gold. Like you want to make sure, okay, I know there's not a lot coming out here. So
but you subscribe to it so you know when there are new episodes, right?
I follow it, but I've drawn a line in the sand. I'm not paying for one more subscription. So they have bonus content as well. And
as a side note, no subscription fees with Podfulness. So you can go ahead and follow that one.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Anyway, please continue with Revisionist History.
Thank you. Yes. So every season they come out with several episodes, and there's typically a theme to the season. What I love about the pocket, well, it's Malcolm Gladwell. So I love all things Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah. So for people that don't know Malcolm Gladwell, explain him to the audience.
Oh God, how do you? So yeah, he's an author. He's a former reporter for the Washington Post. He used to be, he's a self-described former right-wing nut who has evolved. And that's what, that's what I appreciate about him is he's incredibly curious. He's incredibly reflective. He surrounds himself with people who push him intellectually and emotionally. Every episode, not every episode, but most episodes have a really nice, healthy dose of snark, which is one of my favorite characters.
Right.
I
Right.
love snarky things. There's a little bit of self-righteous indignation, but he always turns it back on himself. Like
Yeah, that's the thing I've
he's not
noticed,
on
right?
the soapbox, like just, preaching at you. He's, he will even turn on himself and say, "Oh, please." Like that's one of his favorite sayings is, "Oh, please." So,
Well, that speaks to his
yeah,
curiosity, right? So he's
yeah.
able to be self-reflective and realize when he doesn't know something
Mhm.
as well as maybe he could. Yeah, I love the fact that he's so intellectual, but he's not condescending at all. I
No,
don't think.
not at all. Not at all. Um, and he's an amazing storyteller. Like his voice, so
Hmm.
his background is his father is British, his mother is West Indian. He was raised in Canada. So he's got this very smooth,
It's breathy. It just kind
yeah,
of takes you
it,
in. Yeah.
yeah, it does. And so, there are very few podcasts I can listen to when I'm running, just because my mind wanders too much. But that is one that I can listen to when I'm running. So because it hooks you right in. So
Yeah. Yeah. And his pacing is so good. So we've got
mhm,
Malcolm Gladwell, and he's an author, and obviously he's an intellect.
mhm.
And the tagline of the show is it's a podcast. Revisionist History is a podcast about things overlooked and misunderstood. Right.
Yeah.
So when we hear that, what does that mean to you? Like, how does that podcast show that?
So that means that there are things in this world that I thought I understood, that I thought I knew how we got from point A to point B, but maybe I really didn't. And I want to learn about that.
Right.
So yeah.
So when I dove in, I just randomly picked a podcast, and I chose the one where Lake Bell talked about the sexy baby voice phenomenon.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I like
Okay.
Lake Bell. She's a comedic actress, and she was on Children's Hospital, which was one of
Mhm.
my favorite comedy sitcom. It's not a sitcom, but very short episodes. Really funny. Check it out.
Okay.
But she is a person who's obsessed with the human voice. And she was talking about the sexy baby voice phenomenon and how that's become a thing. And she was explaining how, like, when you talk with a sexy baby voice, your pitch goes up, your voice fries at the end of the sentence, you
Voice,
speak
vocal
up.
fry. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And it was just really fascinating to listen to. And she was just trying to figure out how this became a thing. And then Malcolm got in on the conversation, and it was just a wild conversation that I never thought I'd be interested in.
And that's funny that you say you didn't think I haven't listened to that one yet. Because like I said, I spend those those episodes like pieces of gold. I'm
Right.
like, I just want to wait.
I didn't ruin it for you,
Um,
I promise.
okay, that's okay. That's all right. I'm wondering if they blame the Kardashians because I've heard the Kardashians have been blamed for all things vocal fry.
They certainly
So
brought up the Kardashians, yes.
interesting.
I don't
Okay.
think
All
they
right.
originated that voice, but they certainly have helped to keep it alive.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Exactly.
But one of your favorite episodes, the one that you recommended to me, was about Miss Buchanan's period of adjustment. So talking about 1954 in Topeka. So you are the historian, not me. Help our audience understand what was going on in Topeka at that time.
So Topeka, like much of the United States, especially in the South, had segregated schools. Obviously, schools that served African American students were not as well funded. They didn't have access to the resources that the white schools did. And so they sued. Um, it was the Brown family versus the Board of Education saying, we should have we should be able to go to our neighborhood schools just like the white students should.
Right.
And
The black students were having to
mhm,
walk 5 blocks to get on the
yeah,
bus to go. Right.
yeah, they were originally bused.
And they had
So
to pass a school to do so.
exactly. So long story short, the Supreme Court rules that separate but equal is unconstitutional. And as a historian, I always focused on that they said schools should desegregate with all deliberate speed. And that word deliberate, meant you could go at a pace you thought was appropriate, which was why desegregation was so slow. So I have always zeroed in on that element of it. I never thought about what did this actually mean for these students. And this this episode. Can I give away what happens in it?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because if you don't, I would. I
Okay.
will.
Yeah. So, they talk about, okay, all right, we're going to integrate these schools. And the way they did it was they basically just shut down the schools that served Black students, and Black teachers lost their jobs by the thousands.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not they just wanted the chance to be able to go to a neighborhood school. They wanted the chance to have teachers who look like them as well. And that statistic in there about the impact on students of color of having a teacher of color, like the significance that has on their ability to, like, that blew my mind. And ultimately what just happened is that, like I said, that these schools, that even though they were underfunded, there were great teachers there. There was learning going on. They just needed a fair shake. They're now closed, and Black students are put primarily into classes with white teachers. I am very representative of the teaching population.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a white woman, like, I'm a dime a dozen. And I'd never understood why that was until I listened to this podcast.
Yeah.
And I just sort of saw the dominoes falling. So that was really amazing.
Yeah, the Supreme Court decided that the students of color were being negatively affected
Yes.
by segregation.
Yes.
And you listened to an interview with Brown's daughter, who attended that school, and she said it was really about having control where our kids could go. So it wasn't that she felt she was getting a worse education. She loved her experience at that school. It was just the idea that we should have control. We should be able to attend any school. They weren't saying we don't want to attend our school.
Right.
Right. Were there any shows that you listened to that changed your mind on a topic other than that one? That you gained new insight?
Yeah. So where do you see the word iodized?
I don't know. What you mean, like in the science classroom?
How about in your kitchen cupboard?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Salt,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So, I remember, going to the grocery store as a teenager, and my dad being like, you better buy iodized salt. So he has an episode called Way to Go, Ohio, that's all about how iodine came to be in our salt. And it is fascinating. So, I don't know if we live in what used to be called the goiter belt.
No.
You ever seen someone with a goiter? Like,
Yeah.
we don't see that anymore.
Right.
And that's because we have iodine in our salt. And iodine is a necessary nutrient for your thyroid. And when you don't have enough iodine, especially landlocked areas that don't have access to seawater, you tend to see an iodine deficiency. You get large goiters. You also get cognitive deficiencies. So
Yes. So this is why this show doesn't come out every week. There has to be a lot of research and fact checking and storytelling that goes into it.
absolutely. Yeah.
So is revisionist history at the top of your list then? Because like you said, you have to pace yourself. You don't want to listen to them all at once, right? It's like a
That's right.
dessert.
It is. So I would say when I know they're coming out, I'll go through, my usual cycle of Conan, Smartless, True Story, sometimes Paula Poundstone, something like that. And then I'll be like, okay, and now I get my dessert. I get my revisionist history.
Oh, that's the best.
So, yeah.
So that's Revisionist History, a podcast hosted by Malcolm Gladwell.
Mm-hmm.
And Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink. Have you read that book?
I've read, have I read Blink? I think I have. Tipping Point. My favorite book of his was David and Goliath. So,
I've not read that one.
Oh, that book impacted why my daughter chose the college that she did, or the type of college that she did. So as a woman in STEM, you are much more likely to be successful later in your career if you go to a college that is academically one step below where you should be. Yeah, I know.
Wow. So you can be at the top of the class?
Yes, because so like I started off in engineering at U of M. I was one of 2 women in most of my classes. Felt very out of place, felt like I didn't belong. And he talks about people just like me went into the liberal arts.
Yeah.
Transition. He said they found that women who go, so my daughter is, I know I'm seeing this through parent goggles, but I can objectively say she's brilliant.
Genius, of course.
She is. She's off the chart SAT scores, like, and she was the kid who rolled out of bed and took the SAT and almost got a perfect score. Like she's a freak of nature. So love her dearly. She could have gone to a much more, I would say, academically strenuous school. She also plays basketball. So she was, she had the chance, like University of Chicago was interested in her, Caltech, like small, but very academically powerful schools. Sure. We said that would be great. But if you are going into computer science and cybersecurity, the research shows that women in those programs tend to drop out in those higher level institutions. Whereas if you are at a school, she's at Purdue Northwest, which is a small Division II school in Northwest Indiana.
Yep.
That you will thrive there because you will stand out and you will become confident as a woman in a STEM field. And that is exactly what's happening. And that's because I read David and Goliath, and I was like, I know you're looking at these other places, but if we want to really hedge our bets, let's think about this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, he's Malcolm's making a difference in a lot of people's lives, his work.
Yes.
Yeah,
I no longer use kosher, like the grinding salt. I only use the iodized.
Right.
I don't want to goiter.
Right. Well, I really liked Blink because the message was really simple. It was just, it's the power of thinking without thinking, which is basically trusting your gut.
Yeah.
And so I want to play a game with you right now, but it has to do with defying your gut instinct and going with your second option. I know that makes you feel uncomfortable, Julie.
Yeah. Okay.
But this is how the game works, and it's called On Second Thought.
Podfulness.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a question, and when you answer, I don't want you to go with the first thing that comes to mind. I want you to push that first response aside and go with your second answer. For example, if I were to say, what is the most popular flavor of ice cream? Your gut might say vanilla or chocolate, right? But ignore that and go with your second answer, which might be strawberry or chocolate chip. Okay?
Okay.
So now what is the purpose of this? Because how does the scoring work? Because the correct answer to the question is not going to be the answer you give. Does that make sense? So I asked myself these same questions and I went with my second instinct. So if you can match my second instinct with your answer, just forget it. It'll make sense as we go along. In my head,
this is like a twisted match game. Okay. All right.
This is crazy idea. It doesn't matter. Okay. I just want you to say the second thing and I'll see if your second thing is the same as mine. So question number 1, what is the highest point in North America? Now, you probably know what the highest point in North America is, right?
Yes.
So now you have to go with so now you're probably thinking, what is the second highest point?
Mount McKinley in Alaska.
Mount McKinley is your answer?
Yes, because isn't Pikes Peak the highest? Or do I have it backwards?
You don't. Well, we'll find out later. So you went with McKinley?
I was history, not geography. Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'll go.
It's okay. We're going with McKinley? Okay, we'll come back to that, okay? Who invented the automobile?
Oh.
Think about your gut instinct, but then go with the second option.
So, okay. All right. I know he didn't invent it. He invented a system for manufacturing it.
I know.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. We'll go with Hudson. All I can think is Hudson Hornet. Okay.
Hudson is your guess. Okay, that's your second guess. Very good. All right, so here we go. Question number 3. What is the largest land animal? Your gut is telling you one thing.
Yes.
Go against that gut instinct. What's your answer? This is the most bizarre game I've ever played, by the way. I need to simplify games in the future.
Something. Okay. I'm going to go with hippopotamus.
Hippo. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay.
Who was the first person to set foot on the moon?
So we'll go with the second one. Did Buzz actually get out of the capsule and step on the moon? I'll go with Buzz, but I don't think he's
Buzz
right.
Aldrin.
Okay.
Okay, question number
Yeah.
5. What's the highest grossing movie ever?
Oh, okay.
So there's what your gut is saying.
I know the answer to that, but then second, so I'll go with Frozen. Okay.
Frozen?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Frozen. And then here we go. Number 6, the largest city by population in the world.
Oh,
Whatever you just thought of, push that aside. What's your
okay.
second guess?
So we will go with Beijing.
Beijing.
Or what?
Beijing?
Shanghai. We'll go with Beijing. Okay.
Beijing. So here we go. Let's go back to the first question. What is the
Oh,
highest point in North America? You think Pikes Peak is the highest point, don't you? So you went with your second guess, which is Mount McKinley. McKinley is actually the highest point in the U.S.
okay. All right.
So
Okay.
my gut said McKinley. My second answer was Mount Rainier, which is
Oh,
incorrect. Mount Logan is the second highest peak in North America, and it's in Canada, in the Yukon
okay.
Territory.
All right.
All right, this is such a weird game. So you did not
Okay.
match my
All right.
second guess. Who invented the automobile? You said Hudson. But who do you think, who was your first, what was your gut?
Well, obviously Henry Ford, living
That
in
was my
Michigan,
gut
but
too,
he
right?
didn't invent the automobile.
He did
invented
not.
right.
He invented the assembly line,
Right.
essentially, that
Yeah.
whole idea. Carl Benz was the real inventor of the
Oh, okay.
automobile.
Mercedes.
My
Benz. Okay.
my second guess was Thomas Edison.
Mm,
I didn't know what
okay.
else to put. So you missed that one.
I'm 0 for 2.
And so did I. I know, but it's
Okay.
like the scoring
all
system.
right.
Forget it. You're a winner. Just know that.
There-
The largest land animal, your gut said what?
Elephant.
Elephant, right. That's the
Right.
correct answer. That's what my gut said. Or African elephant, technically. My second guess was the rhino. And you said the hippopotamus.
I had that debate in my head about, is a hippo bigger than a rhino? And I couldn't.
But let's face it, both
Yeah.
of those animals are so cool.
They really
So you're
are.
going to get that one correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The first person to set foot on the moon, the real answer is, your gut
Neil
said
Armstrong.
Neil Armstrong.
Right.
That's what my gut said too. Your second guess was Buzz Aldrin.
Buzz Aldrin.
That was mine as well. So we're on the
Woo! Okay.
same page.
All right, there we go. Okay.
Great work there. Highest grossing movie ever. What did your
Isn't
gut
it-
say?
It's Avatar. isn't it?
Avatar. That's right.
Yeah.
$2.9 billion it brought in worldwide.
Okay.
Your second guess was Frozen. And I said Titanic as the second guess.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It should have been. Yeah.
But if you want to know, the highest grossing movies, Avatar, Avengers Endgame, and then Avatar Way of Water. Somehow that one has snuck in.
Wow. Okay.
People just love the Avatar. Okay.
Okay.
And here we go. Final question here. The largest city by population in the world. What
Isn't
did
it
your
Mexico City?
Mexico City. That is a good guess, but it's not. So
Okay.
my gut said Shanghai for some reason,
Okay.
which was not correct. The real largest city by population is Tokyo.
Really?
39 million people in Tokyo.
Okay.
And that was my second guess, Tokyo,
Wow.
right?
All
Which is
right.
actually the real
Okay.
guess. This is the most bizarre game in the world, but do you feel like you learned something at least?
I did.
mean-
Yeah. Mount Logan. Never heard of that.
The Mount Logan, right. But now
did
you
not
now I know
realize
you love to
Tokyo
visit
had
parks.
39 million people. There we go.
39 million, right?
There we go. Yeah.
You love visiting national parks, right?
Yeah. Next week we are flying out to Yosemite. I can't wait.
Oh
So
my gosh, it's going to be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Do not
If it's
feed
open.
the animals.
okay, I'll try not to.
Thank you for playing that game with me, Julie. Thanks for
Yeah,
talking about
thank you.
revisionist history. Do you think Malcolm Gladwell would have liked the game we just played, or do you think that it would have been even too confusing for him?
I think he would have liked that.
Okay.
I think that would have piqued his interest.
Okay.
I think that was
I'd like to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
As I close the show, I want to be sure to give credit to all of the people behind the scenes that you don't know, that you don't hear, but they're working hard to bring Podfulness to you each and every week. So let me just take a moment to read the credits. Podfulness is hosted by me, Mark Bernstein, produced by Mark Bernstein, executive producer Mark Bernstein, theme song written and performed by Mark Bernstein. Supervising producer is a guy named Mark Bernstein. Engineering and additional production support by Mark Bernstein, and our talent booker is Mark Bernstein. This team works hard to bring you quality content week after week. Did you know that you can rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or other streaming services? It's true. You got a question for Mark? That's me. Reach out via email at podfulness@gmail.com. You can visit podfulness.com. You can connect on Twitter or Instagram, and my handle is @Podfulness. And finally, if you haven't already, please subscribe to Podfulness so you don't miss a single episode. That's it. I hate asking this kind of stuff, but it's through your support and interest that I stay energized and I keep charging ahead. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you next time on future episodes of
Podfulness.